Hello, welcome back to another live. My name is Laken, and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to chat and hang out, teach you something about goals, update you on my goals, and then answer any questions that you have about goals, planning, life, whatever is on your mind. Let's kick it off with our first question. What is one small win that you have to share from the last week? It doesn't have to be huge. All wins are wins. You know that. I love to hear about your wins, even if you feel like it is not that big of a win. I promise you that is how you get the big wins, is by adding up all of the small wins. So if you are here live, please say hello in the chat and let us know what your win is. And if you are watching the replay, I would love for you to say hi in the comments and share your win in the comments. While I wait for the comments to pop up, my win for the week was that I trusted my gut on something. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but just a lovely reminder that it's okay to just trust your gut sometimes. And I am not good at that because I like to use my logic brain. I like to think about all the details and the pros and cons and all the things. And using my gut really is something I've been working on, and trusting my gut this week was my win. So let's hear about your wins. If you're here live, please say hello and share what they are. Take a sip of my coffee here. So good. So good. Y'all, I don't know what it is about iced coffee that I just love so much, that it is so delicious. Where is everybody? Hello? Oh, there's a couple of comments that popped up. These are from earlier, I think. Hello, I love your little caterpillar emoji. Happy Wednesday. Hello. Where are our wins, y'all? Come on. I promise sharing is not as scary as it may seem. You practice your keyboard. I love that. I keep saying I'm going to get back into playing the piano. I played the piano for years and years and years and years and years and years. And then I kind of stopped. And I think it's one of those things that, like, it's probably somewhat like riding a bike. Like, I remember pieces of it, but some of it I would have to definitely work at. And I just haven't decided, is that something that is a good use of my goal, time, space? But I think it would be a good thing where I would be able to turn off my brain from other things. Like, I think I would be able to just focus on that for the time being. And it would be a good, like, brain turn off kind of activity. Did a little bit of gardening. I love that. Hello from Kansas City. Last week of school over here. You're so close. You're so close. Taking lunch away from your desk. Allison, that is a huge win. I love that. All right, let's jump into the first part of our weekly live chat. Ashley, first, thank you for being my guinea pig and including your name that you prefer to go by. I very much appreciate that, because I think last week I asked if it was Ashley or Ashley Lynn. I took the long weekend off and didn't check my email. Win for someone who struggles with work-life balance. That is definitely a win. I love it. All right, regarding book updates, I don't really have any. I didn't finish any books, and the progress that I made on each of these books, I just realized there's a typo here. I made a little bit of progress on this one, How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind, a little bit of progress on this one, which is Becoming by Michelle Obama, and a little bit of progress on this one, but not much across the board, and didn't finish anything over the week. So let's move into the more exciting things, like my weekly goal check-in. Where did my thing go? It's trying to load. Okay, well, my goals decide if they want to show up today. What the heck is going on with my, let me try to add it again. Pros and cons of being live, huh, y'all? There are times that everything works smoothly and it is just perfect and easy. And then there are times that technology does not want to work. There we go. Okay. So here is the update on my May goals. I actually filmed my May goals video this morning. So this is the exact snapshot that you will see on that goals video in a couple of weeks. But since last week, I didn't do any more of my one-time items. That looks exactly the same. I have made more progress on a couple of my weeklies. My weeklies haven't been perfect, but they haven't been terrible. It's been kind of a little bit all over the place. Daily stuff has been kind of up and down. I was sick for a little bit last week, and that definitely threw me off a little bit. You can see that in my workouts and also in my Instagram limits that I hit when I was sick. But overall, I've been feeling pretty good about May. It was hard. I think May was hard partially because it was a lot of the same action steps as April. And so I was getting a little bit bored with that progress, but I know that's how it works. I know that I've got to take those small, somewhat boring steps in order to keep making progress. And then there's also just been a lot going on outside of my goals, which is always part of it, right? Your life happens that doesn't show up on this piece of paper. And that's something that I always have to remember as well. All right. Any questions, comments, things on those things before we move in? Okay, one more housekeeping thing before we move into the topic, and that is the giveaway winner. Y'all, I forgot to do it before the live. So the giveaway winner, I added this like right before because I forgot. The giveaway winner will be emailed after the live. I haven't picked one yet. So there is still time to enter potentially. If you're here live and you didn't enter the giveaway, I talked about it last week. It's in the description box of last week's live. You could go right this second and enter it. You have to guess until the end of the live, and then I'm going to pick a winner. And I will email the winner and how to organize and coordinate all of the things. Okay, let's talk about refreshing. So I know you're like, we're basically not even, it's not the end of May. We're like halfway through the quarter and we're already going to talk about refreshing. And I want to for a couple of reasons. Number one is you might need to do a refresh now. I set quarterly goals for a couple of reasons. One of those is it allows me to get individual, like smaller step progress on my goals, right? One of them is to help me stay focused on something specific and figuring out my action steps. Great. But one big reason to set quarterly focused goals is so that you can set goals that are specific to where you are at in that season of life. And we use the word season so interchangeably when we talk about this because season can mean the actual season, right? Winter, spring, summer, fall. But season also tends to mean like what else you have going on. I'm in a season with small children. I'm in a season of engagement. In the words of Taylor Swift right now, we're using the word era. I'm in my whatever era. Season was kind of the original part of that phrase, right? And so when you set quarterly goals, the other major, and for me too, is what do I need in that season? What are the goals that are going to support my life and make sense for my life in that season? And for most of my adult life and my goal setting life, the quarters of the year, the way they fall, like 3 months at a time, has just worked. It's just worked for me. There hasn't been anything that's really any different. And for now, I may keep that the same. I mentioned this on, I think it was last night's coaching call. I may change that next year. I may decide that I want to do a refresh for the summer, which for me is in my brain kind of kicks off Memorial Day weekend. And I know that's not like the true definition of summer, right? Summer is the end of June. So the quarters almost fall in with the actual seasons, right? It's off by like a week or two. And I don't have a summer as it pertains to any sort of schooling. And that could change by next year, not necessarily school, but you know what I mean? Some sort of place that like that my daughter would go. But it's more for me about how I treat that season. What are the things I want in my life? And for me, a lot of it is also dependent on the weather. I really want to lean in the next 4 months to the weather and pick my work schedule. The beauty of working for myself is, with the exception of this live and the coaching call, everything else I can do pretty much whenever I want. Like, it doesn't have to be done a set day, a set time. I can do it over the course of the week whenever I want. And so I want to be able to look at the week and say, okay, Tuesday is going to be a absolutely beautiful day. I want to go to the pool and take any work I planned for Tuesday and push it to Friday, right? I don't need to do it on the day that I planned. And I understand that that is like a benefit of working for myself. There's also I was just talking to a friend who works for herself who is sick, and I was like, that's when I miss like having a corporate job, is being able to take a sick day. And I understand taking a sick day is still, there's meetings to be rescheduled. There's still lots of pieces to it. But it is a different feeling when you work for yourself and you take a sick day and you're like, nothing is getting done. I'm not making any progress and I'm not getting paid. Anyway, pros and cons. I could lean into the weather. I can't take paid sick days. That said, so in my head, I would have potentially liked to do a refresh for right now and set a different set of goals for June, July, August, and actually probably September. But I am not doing it that way this year. I'm just sticking with my normal quarters. You'll see that in my goals video, and that's how I'm going to continue. You might need a refresh now. You might decide that it makes more sense for you to go ahead and refresh your goals. And when I say refresh, I mean two components. Number one is checking in with your annual goals. Where are you at in your annual goals? Do you want to adjust anything about them? Do you need to add anything or change things? And I talked last quarter a lot about all kinds of things related to a refresh. And one of those things was things that you might know you need a refresh. You can go back and revisit those videos, that one in particular. And one of those things was like something popped up and you know that you need a refresh because you got engaged or you had a baby or you got a new job or you're moving or whatever. But some of it might just be like you feel like you need it. And those of you who work in education, this could potentially be a time that you need a refresh, etc. So the reason I want to talk about this is if you feel like you need it, take it. Don't wait until it is the new quarter, if that makes sense. Okay. So if you don't feel like you need it and you're like me and you're going to just wait to do your refresh at the middle to end of June, it's never too early to start thinking about it. I know that's the question in the title of the video. The answer is no, it's not too early. I would recommend you have a running list. And I talked about this during a live towards the end of last quarter, specifically about all the various goal lists that I have. Start that list. Start that idea list for Q3, like right now. That way, you know that your brain has capacity to focus on right now and you're thinking about it. Instead of being like, oh, I wish I could do a refresh, and instead I'm just not going to focus on my goals. Like, you can stay focused and have a running list of ideas for Q3. Another reminder is that you are allowed to change your mind. Goals do not have rules. They don't. Goals do not have rules. They may have suggestions. They may have guidelines. They may have, maybe rules and guidelines are the same thing. They may have structure. There may be suggestions on when I would recommend you refresh this, that, and the other, but there are no set rules. There's no right or wrong way to do goals. The best way is the way that works for you and the way that makes sense for you and your life, your brain, your personality, your everything. So you're allowed to change your mind. So maybe today, sitting here today, whether you're here live or watching the replay, you decide, I don't want to do a refresh yet. I'm good. I'm just going to set goals for June. And then your kids get out of school on June 7th. What day of the week is that? Is that even feasible? Yeah, it's a Friday. Hey, good job, me. I think my brain probably innately knew that it was a Friday. So your kids get out of school June 7th and you're going into that weekend and you're thinking about how different Monday is going to feel, how different it is going to be from Friday, from your kids being in school to not being in school. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I need to revamp my goals. My goals need a refresh because what I'm doing right now is not going to work for this new phase of our year. You can change your mind and you could do a refresh in that moment. Or in my case, you could not. And you could decide like, nope, this is how I'm going to stick through it for this year, this quarter, whatever. And I may change my mind at a later date. I we'll see. I may actually, for my quarterly goals, do June, July, and August, and then treat September. If I'm not going to lump September into with June, then September might be like fall. And I know I say this every year, and so I'm saying it again for all of us to remember, I don't need goals in December. December doesn't need goals. December is about the holidays and Vlogmas and preparing for the new year. No goals in December. So maybe what I'm going to do is July, August is a set of goals, my summer goals, if you will. And then September, October, November are my fall goals. And then December is December. Now, the harder part about this is that I do quarterly refresh calls with you and I film videos. And so how that shakes out might look a little bit different. But my point is you are in control. You get to decide what works best for you and your life. I see a couple comments. I'm going to click over. Summer starting on the solstice is a modern concept. There's a reason it's also known as Midsummer's Day. Interesting. And it also very much depends on where you live in the world, right? Like, obviously, if you're on the other side of the hemisphere, it's not even, we're not talking about summer, right? We're talking about winter. And it depends on what the seasons look like in your neck of the woods. I mean, it was 90 degrees here yesterday. That's not quite normal for Chicago, but truly did feel like summer to me. I prefer to focus on season of the year, feels grounded in nature and our historic cultural rituals. The term season of life is often used in fundamentalist Christian culture, and I cannot relate to. Susie, I feel that, and I wish that wasn't the case, right? I wish we could use season of life and it has nothing to do with religion, because it doesn't. Frankly, it does not. The season of life that we're in that's a human thing. Right? We all have seasons of life depending on what you have going on in your individual life. And so I don't use that word from that place of it. I just want everyone to know that. And I don't think it needs to be. I think it unfortunately has maybe gotten used that way. And so that is how people relate to it. So if we need to come up with a different phrase, but it is really, it's about what does your life look like right now, essentially. The quarterly timelines always felt awkward to me as a grad student. I've switched to refreshing my goals 3 times a year in January, May, and September. I love that. I think that depending on where, again, what, she is in her grad student season of life, and maybe we just need to do era here in your grad student era. But that, I don't know, for whatever reason, y'all, that kind of annoys me too. This may just be me. Or maybe it's just overused at this point. But the refreshes when they make sense for you. And again, no rules, just suggestions. My suggestions would be that it's not any shorter than, let's say, 2 months. Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense to revisit any shorter than that, but I wouldn't go any longer than 4. So 3 times a year would probably be my recommendation, a minimum, just because any more than that and you're letting it go on a lot longer without revisiting those annual goals. Okay, next thing I want to remind you of, which I have a bullet point here, but I have already said this multiple times. I talked about a lot of these topics in more detail and specificity last quarter. So if you want to start thinking about it and you just want some things to grind your gears, to get your gears turning, is the phrase I was trying to use there, go back and rewatch some of those lives. The timestamps are always in the description box, so you can jump directly to the teaching part of the live. Revisit the topics from last quarter, all about refreshing. Most importantly, though, and the biggest reason I recommend doing any kind of goal refresh is more now, so much more than you did in December when you set your goals, or even March when you last refreshed it. My guess, if you're like me too, when we revisited our annual goals in March, we were like, I just set them. Like, I feel good about them. We know a lot more now. We have lived a lot more of this year. We know more about where our year is headed, right? When we were setting our goals last December, the following December was 12 months away. I don't know about you, but I'm not planning a whole lot 12 months out. But now that it's almost June, we have a really good sense, at least I do, of what the rest of my year will look like. And I can more confidently set annual goals as it pertains to the rest of the year. So don't feel like, oh, well, I don't need a refresh because like my goals haven't changed. You don't know that. You don't know that your priorities haven't shifted in your subconscious. I would encourage you just to take a second and revisit and think about it because you know so much more than you did when you last set your goals. And the last thing that I want to say on this topic is we're almost halfway. Okay? Like we're almost halfway. I don't want you to take that and use it as an excuse to give up on 2024. You like that's a lot of time. We still have so much of the year left. So, regardless of what has happened in the last 5.5, 6 months, please, please, please do not give up on 2024. There's still so much time left. You still have so many opportunities to make progress. And I don't want you to use what has happened about what has happened over the last however many months to direct you the second half. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even though I'm long out of school and don't work on campus anymore, the calendar is still ingrained in me. Yeah, there's a lot of people that still prefer a refresh as it pertains to the school calendar. My birthday is June 14th. It's mid-year. It's perfect to recess. I love that. I really do. And that's why for me too, I probably will never lose that first quarter check-in because my birthday is March 25th. And so for me, refreshing at the end of March just feels right to me. But I can see in the future doing something that's like April and May together, and then June, July, and August together. I know that one piece of this that came up for me when I was thinking about this topic that I do struggle with or potentially could struggle with is when it happens in the middle of a month, right? So the example I was giving, right? Your kids are done with school June 7th. How do you tackle that? How do you tackle that? And I want to share that even though the months give us this nice, pretty outline, your life and your timeline is more important than some perfect month. So if that were the case, I would recommend, like, if you're like, I want to base it on my kids' school year because that works for you, or your school year because you work in education, or your spouse's school year because they work in education, whatever it is, if you're basing it on a school calendar and it's not perfectly at the end of a month, then you just extend 1 month and shorten the other. So let's say my daughter was in school and I foresee at some point in my life where my goals very much are going to be dictated on whether she is in school or not, because I spend a lot of my day caring for her. And so that will impact what I can and cannot get done. So let's say she gets out June 11th. I picked like a random day. I would do May goals through like June 10th. I would probably always do a week. So maybe like June 9th, that Sunday. And then I would do June goals that's shorter. And that would be fine, but it would make sense for my life and my situation. Oh my gosh, this comment. This is honestly the first year I haven't thrown in the towel on goals. Planning community is playing a big supporting part. So grateful. I love that. Same. This year, I'm actually working on it thanks to these lives and one little word. That's awesome. Okay, the last thing I want to tell you about is if you need help thinking through this and some tangible actions, we are doing another goal refresh challenge. I did this last year, so it is going to feel very similar to last year's, except that it's a year later. And so I know more and you know more. You're in a different place. I'm in a very different place. And so it's going to be the same concept, but obviously refreshed and different. So it is a free goal refresh challenge. All you have to do is sign up with your email. The link is in the description box, and you're going to get video trainings and handouts emailed to you for 3 days. It is Friday. It's going to kick off Friday, June 7th. It doesn't matter. That's just the days that I would recommend. I know a lot of you work full-time during the week, and so Friday, Saturday, Sunday made sense to me. It's enough time that you're going to get those videos in your possession. That way you can work through them before we would need to actually set up our goals. So that will kick off Friday, June 7th. You'll get the first email with the first video in your inbox. If you are interested in signing up, the link is in the description box. You just need your email and your name. I don't know why the email platform needs your name, but they do. Okay. That is it. That is all that I have planned. Now it is your time. We're moving into Q&A. Feel free to ask anything. It can be about the topic that we just discussed. We can continue this conversation on refreshing quarters and seasons and etc. It can be about your individual goals or struggles. I promise you, even if you feel like it is so specific to your life, somebody will benefit from the question that you ask. It can be about a specific topic. Even if you don't know how to phrase it into a question, you can put topic and then whatever it is, or whatever is on your mind, whatever you want to chat with. This is your time. I can't stop playing with my hair. I got my hair cut almost 2 weeks ago now. And I'm still getting used to it and messing with it. I definitely did I'm now a mom, and so I'm going to chop off my hair situation. Also, it's summer and I wanted just to feel lighter, and I have very thick hair. And so it just feels fresher. It feels good. I'm still getting used to figuring out how to style it this short, but I feel like I'm getting there. All right. What is on your mind? How long before the next quarter do you usually do the refresh? That's a great question. So the call for the community will be scheduled the weekend of June 22nd, 23rd. That would be my recommendation for the latest I would recommend. That way you still have a whole week to then also prepare for the month. It just gives you a little bit more wiggle room. But truthfully, you could do it whenever. If you want to start doing, I have to do mine earlier because I record videos. So I have to do mine a little bit earlier. If I was not recording a video, that's the weekend I would do it on my own. But if you want to wait till the next weekend, Q3 starts on a Monday also. So you could wait and do it over the weekend, June 29th and 30th. We're going to be traveling that weekend, so I wouldn't do it then anyway. It kind of just depends on your life, right? If you're going to be traveling the 22nd, 23rd, then do it the 30th, the 29th and 30th. It also depends on if you want to do it on the weekends, maybe you work weekends, you need to do it in the middle of the week. Truthfully, I don't feel like a quarterly refresh timing is that different than the monthly. Whenever you feel like you do want to do a monthly refresh, do it similarly. Just know that you need more time to do the quarterly one typically than a monthly one. What else? What else is on your mind? It doesn't have to be about the refresh or any of those things. It can be about whatever you want to chat about, whatever topic or things that you feel like you need. Or it could just be for fun. We could talk about books or TV, or I feel like I've been talking TV a lot with my sister. I feel like I've mentioned this a million times, so I apologize that I started a podcast with my sister, and we have changed the format that is just chatty. We record once a week, and we just literally sit down and talk about current things in our lives and update each other on things. Like there will be times that my sister will be like, well, I can't tell you, because I can't tell you until I tell you on the podcast. But we've been talking about TV a lot over there. Oh my gosh. So this is funny. If you're going to New York City soon, prioritize Illinois. As a dancer, you'll love it. We're actually going to New York City tomorrow. Fun fact. We leave for New York tomorrow, and we are not seeing a show while we're there. I feel like everything that has come out this season has mixed reviews. Like there's nothing I feel like that is just getting rave must see. The only one that we really considered was Merrily We Roll Along, and the ticket prices were just so out of this world that we couldn't justify it. It was also just the timing. We're going for a wedding, and the timing of finding it a day to go see a show and see all the people we want to see in New York was proving difficult. And so we finally just switched to the mindset of if anything is that good, it will go on tour and it will come to Chicago and we will see it when it gets here. So we're actually not seeing a show while we're in New York, which feels weird. It feels like it makes me sad. But again, we there was just not enough. We're there for 6 days, and somehow there just wasn't enough. There's not enough days with again, we're there for a wedding and Sam's in the wedding. And so he's got the rehearsal dinner on Saturday and the wedding on Sunday. So that took out, 3 to 4 time slots there of shows. Um, and then the only time some family could do dinner was or could see us really and meet Lila was Friday night. So like there was another time. I didn't want to do tomorrow night in case our flight's delayed. You know what I mean? Things are dark on Monday. So anyway, I've heard good things from some people about this show, and I am just hoping that it will go on tour, and we'll see it. Lisa, this is a good question. My someday maybe list gets a bit long and it gets overwhelming. Any tips on that? Yes. So I don't know what time frame. If you mean like maybe someday 1 year plus, if that's the case, that idea list can be long. Like I would rather have more ideas on that list that I can revisit and decide if I really want to do it. That it's almost the mindset around the list of reminding yourself that like if you don't get to it in ever, like it's okay. It's not have to do. These are not things that you have to do or achieve or any of those things. It's just an option. It's an idea. And I would rather have the idea and decide I don't want to do it than forget it by taking it off and then like feeling like I'm still trying to store it in my head, if that makes sense. Because even if you logicked your way, right? I could tell you, oh, we'll revisit that list and like take things off. I could tell you that. But here's what would happen for me is I would look at that list and my logic brain in that moment will be like, well, that's probably not ever something I'm going to prioritize. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that off. But then I wouldn't want deep down, I wouldn't want to forget it just in case. So then I would like find a little place in my brain to store it because it's not written down anymore. And that is clutter in my head that I don't need. I don't need that extra clutter in my head. I would rather, sometimes people, what's the phrase I want to put here? Sometimes people comment on the fact that I write things down in more than one place or that I repeat myself in my planning process and whatnot. Here's the thing. If I don't write it down and sometimes in like 3 places, then I try to store it in my brain. And that's not a good use of the space in my brain. I mean, neither are the like 800 Britney Spears lyrics that I know either. That's also not good use of space in my brain, but I don't know how to get rid of that. But I do know how to get rid of the things I have to do by writing them down in 3 places and making sure that I'm not taking up space. So my recommendation is not necessarily to cut the list or limit the list. My recommendation is more to just use the mindset that that list is not a to-do list. It's not a things you have to get to in your lifetime list. It's not a, if you don't do these things, you're a failure list. It is a list of options, of goal ideas, of things that could spark other ideas for you to revisit every time. Yes. You think when you write it down, it means you have to do it. And that's not the case. Not for this list anyway. It doesn't mean that there aren't lists that we write down that those are things we have to do. But that is a list that you don't have to do it. And so think of it as just a holding place. It's a holding place to get those ideas out of your head. And if you need more lists to make them smaller, that could be an option, right? Maybe you have a list that's like 2025. I actually have this. Like I have a 2025 idea list that I've already started. Like it already exists because I know there's only so many days this year that I'm not going to get to things. But then I also have like plus list, like something there's no way I'm getting to that in 25. But I'd like to do this at some point in my life. That list doesn't like the size of that list doesn't bother me. If anything, I wish I had more ideas on that list, truthfully. But think of it as just a holding place for ideas. It's not a must-do list, and it is getting the things out of your brain. Or organizing the list might be the answer. Yeah. Categorizing time frames like 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, or something like that. Um, or breaking it up by like for sure I want to get to this. Maybe that's not helping your situation. And then like maybe I could do this and like probably not, but like I don't want to lose it kind of section per category. Yeah, totally. I hope that was helpful. I don't think you're alone and not struggle. And I think that that is just a mindset that I had to get over at some point where I was just like, my goal idea lists are not requirements. If I, even this year, like I think I mentioned this last quarter, my, like of my annual goals, my idea list for one of my annual goals is make time for myself. Prioritize time for myself. How did I phrase that? I can't even remember now. And I don't have my annual goals in front of me. I only have my quarterly goals. But the ideas for that category, there's like 20. I am not going to get to all of them by the end of the year. There's no way. So then at the end of the year, whichever ones I don't get to could be ideas for 25, or I could just be like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to worry about those. Whereas some of the other goals, I am out of ideas on what I'm going to do next quarter. So it just depends. Not too long in the future, 5 years from now, stresses me out. See, I think putting a number on it could stress me out, but I think having it on there doesn't stress me out. Like there's one thing on my list I'm not going to share that is like likely a 5+ year goal, but it's not it doesn't have a timeline, but it doesn't stress me out because I know that it's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay. I just want to, there's a couple comments here that are kind of like about miscellaneous things, and then I'll get back to some of these questions. I saw Marilee off Broadway. Will see most of them this season. Outsiders in Illinois are the best, and Stereophonic, which is a play. I think I've said before, I'm not typically a play person except for Harry Potter. Interesting. Okay. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Allison. I think also it's hard because when we lived there, we did also see a lot of them. But then because it was like they would close, even if they did like win a bunch of things. So it was like we had to prioritize them sooner rather than later. Whereas I have to have the mindset now that like if it's really good, it'll go on tour and it'll come to Chicago and then I will see it. And if it's not, then I didn't need to see it. Oh, welcome. I'm glad that you're able to join live. Thank you. Please recommend videos for newbies to watch. Those of us who didn't join at first of the year. I joined late and I'm still feeling a bit of behind and out of the loop. Oh, this is a good question, but it's also hard because newbie can mean so many things. Like you're new to me and my channel means one thing, but like you're new to goals means another thing. I have a video that's called like Start Here Goals 101, something like that title. I don't know what I titled it. And if you're like fresh with starting with goals, that's where I would recommend. In terms of like where to start, I wouldn't even recommend that you go back to a bunch of things. Like, I don't know that you need to. I think you start with where we're at. You watch videos as we go forward. And if you have questions, you can ask questions about them. And I'm happy to answer the questions. I do think I sometimes talk like I assume everybody knows everything. And that I don't think I will change, but know that I do not feel bad if you have a question that feels like newbie, that feels like everybody else knows, because I will tell you, there are people who don't, they're just not asking, right? They're just not asking the question. So don't ever feel like you can't ask a question that feels like it would be obvious, because that's definitely not the case. And maybe I need to come up with a better list of like, here's where to start. But truthfully, I wouldn't want you to feel pressured to have to like go back in time and watch a bunch of old videos. I would just start watching and then and ask questions as needed. I'm a goals oldie, but goals with Laken community newbie. Awesome. I love it. And exactly, questions like this. If you have questions like this, you are more than welcome to ask them. So we moved to Chicago to be closer to family. That's basically, that's it. That's the reason. We love New York and we loved the city, but we didn't have any immediate family there. And it was very important to me that when I started my family, that we were close to immediate family. And so we decided of all the options of our immediate family, Chicago was the best choice for a number of reasons. And that was why we moved here. This is a good question. Can our list making planning be seen as procrastination or perfectionism? And I always wonder about that. First off, be seen is, to me, I'm trying to be good, y'all, about word choice because it really does make an impact. So when you say, can our list making planning be seen as procrastination or perfectionism? Who is it being seen that way by? If it is being seen that way by like random person on the internet, I don't care. I don't care how they view it. That does not impact me. I know I brought that up by saying that some people comment on the fact that I write things in 3 places. That if they have an issue with me doing that, that is 1,000% on them and not on me. Now, if it is being seen by yourself, so if really what you're asking is if it feels like that way to you, then that's a different situation. And that is something that you may want to change yourself. And there have been times in my life where I can tell that I am using my planning and list making as procrastination. And I would ask myself, like, is this plan good enough? And 9 times out of 10, it was. Right. And I just needed to start taking action. And I was just afraid to start taking action. So it's really, it's how it feels to you. That's what's more important. And if it feels like you're making lists and planning to avoid doing, then I would ask yourself, like, what's holding me back from the doing? Is it because it's too big? Is it not the right goal? Is it not, I was going to say not broken down enough. That's the same thing as too big, but you know what I mean? For me, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel like any of the lists that I make or any of the plans that I do, none of it is about procrastination. It is just the system that works for me. And I know that it's taken me years and years and years and years to figure that out. But I know that the process and the places I write things down is what works for me. So. Oh, significant other has a work trip late July to Chicago, and I'm tagging along. Any suggestions on what to do for a week-long trip? Morgan, so first off, I know I've said this before. Also, I love your YouTube handle and your picture. When it comes to suggestions, it is places like New York and Chicago, and I have been getting questions like this about New York for all the years I lived there, and then now living in Chicago. It can be so hard to give suggestions, like blanket suggestions, because everybody's preferences and budgets and desires when it comes to vacations are so different, and it is so hard sometimes to just say, like, here are the things I recommend, because there's so many things. There is in big cities like this. It's not necessarily like, here are this bang, bang, bang. There's so many things. And so my request always is, when you do ask for suggestions, that you try to be as specific as possible. Like, these neighborhoods, this type of cuisine, this type of activity. I like to do this. Is there, what would you recommend for somebody in Chicago? And then I can make suggestions that are a lot easier. All of that said, the architecture cruise, and there's more than one of them. Just pick one. They're all the same, it feels like to me. That is something we always tell people to do when they're here, especially in the summer. It's beautiful outside. Do the architecture tour, river boat cruise. I have 2 podcast episodes I did with my sister on this topic. One was, we did Chicago versus New York. And in that episode, we talked a lot about recommendations for Chicago. Number 2, we did our perfect weekends in Chicago. So that's another option of things. That one has a little bit more specifics on like actual restaurants that we recommend. So recommend doing that. two more things on this topic, just in general. And then Morgan, if you want to ask for more specific suggestions, either here live, or if you want to send me a DM on Instagram, I am happy to give them to you. Number one is, well, that just like escaped my brain. I don't even know what I was going to say there. Okay. Well, number two is try to have some things that you like to do that you want to do in every city. Oh, I remember what number one is. So I don't forget, if someone wants to remind me, it depends on where you're coming from. Okay. So try to have some things that this is just a general travel tip, that you like to do in every city. I like to try and find a bookstore every city. I like to make sure that I have a local coffee, and try to like have things that you like to do in every city that you travel. And that gives you some ideas to spark. Number two, the other thing that makes suggestions hard is it also very much depends on where you're coming from. Somebody is coming, like if somebody comes to Chicago that's coming from New York, I'm not going to recommend they go see a Broadway show. But if you're coming to Chicago from the middle of nowhere and you like Broadway and you don't get tours where you live, go see a Broadway show. Whatever's in town when you're in town, go see it, right? Like, you know what I mean? It really depends on where you're coming from. That can also adjust the recommendations, especially with cuisine too. Now, Chicago pretty much has good cuisine of anything that you could ever want. And so it's like, but if somebody is coming from Texas, I'm not going to tell them to go to Tex-Mex. Northern California, I'm not going to recommend that you go to the Chicago winery. Okay. Did we have a blast there on Mother's Day? Absolutely. That is not where you should go in Chicago, right? That's not useful for you. You did that in Boston, the architecture related. The Chicago architecture is absolutely beautiful. It gives you an excuse to get a boat on the river. And they run all day long. So it's a good option to like fill in a slot that you could possibly want. Yeah, Northern California. Okay. Like I said, don't do the winery. It was fun, but like I would never recommend that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like blanket statements. Go see the lake. The lake is beautiful. But again, if you live in Northern California, you also live probably not terribly far from a body of water. I think my other struggle too with Chicago, y'all, is I've only been here a year and a couple months. So, and a lot of that time I was miserably pregnant and then had a newborn. So I feel like my Chicago knowledge is not very vast yet. My mom, my sister, though, they've got the answers. What are the best and worst things about making a living as a YouTube social media influencer? Such a unique era that we live in. Whew, that's a great question. First off, I don't necessarily like to consider myself an influencer in the true definition of like, I'm trying to influence you to buy other things, because that is not what I'm here for. I do favorites videos, but half of them are usually habits or things. Now, if you want to consider me an influencer where I'm influencing you to achieve your goals, I will be that kind of influencer. And truthfully, I don't think of YouTube and social media as my business. They are marketing platforms that I use to market my other services that I offer. And that is how I make my living. Yes. Does YouTube pay me AdSense? Yes. Does most of it go to pay my editor every month? Also, yes. Like my income is not being made from YouTube or Instagram. It is marketing to get towards the other things. All that said, the answer is still the same. The best thing is, I think in general, the best thing about working for yourself in general, and that is I am in control of my schedule. I can work from anywhere. Like if I want to pick up and work in a different city, I do have that flexibility. And to be honest, I like it. Like I like talking about goals. I like hanging out with you. I like learning about you and your goals and all of those things. Like I enjoy that. The worst thing is worst things. The two that really pop up in my head. One is the same thing again about working for yourself. It's just the fluctuations of income and the lack of support for like general benefits, paid maternity leave, paid sick time, etc. Like, yes, I have the flexibility, but then if I'm not working, I'm not making money. And that has gotten harder to me as I um like have got pregnant and then had a baby, etc. The other one is always, how do I say this nicely? Always being worried about everything I say. I really I truly do feel like I am myself. But at the same time, I also do feel like I have to have a filter on at all times because we are just in, like you said, a unique era that we live in where people are always looking for the negative and they're always looking for people to screw up and they're always looking for people to say something wrong. And the second that you do, everyone is like, and they like attack you. And I've been there. I've been on the receiving end of that, sometimes justified, sometimes not. Like, and things that I've said that I like were taken the wrong way or whatever. And so I hate that I feel like I have to think really hard about everything that I say on the internet because of how it is taken a lot. And that's a bummer. That's such a bummer. And like I said, I do feel like I do a really good job of being myself. I feel like I am myself. I feel like I hope those of you who have met me in person, like you don't feel like you're meeting a different person than who you see on your screen. Um, but it doesn't mean that I don't have to think before I say things. And I don't like that. It's kind of a bummer, but it's a good question. I don't post things online, but I feel that way just like with comments and such. I think we all feel that way with social media. Absolutely. It's not just somebody who makes their living on it. It's more of just like um it's almost on a bigger scale, right? Like it's I say one thing and then it's, this person it domino effects and it's like this person posts about it and that person posts about it. Um so that's I don't know. I don't know why. It's what really comes down to is I wish we weren't so, and I can be guilty of it too. Um, I wish we didn't feel like we need to read into every word somebody says, right? Like you would never like, how do I, like you would always spend the time to think through something before you said something really important. And sometimes with social media, we post things on the fly or we say things on the fly. I go live every single week. And it's so easy to say things and to not put them through a different lens first. And we all do it. And so then why on the flip side do we judge everybody's word choice? Everybody, well, they said this word, so they must have meant this. Like, and y'all, and after having a baby, like it feels like it's, and now I'm inundated with like the mom, and I follow a lot of moms on Instagram now, and like the moms pop up all the time. It's it's almost worse. It's like stop judging people for what they do with their children. Oh, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I was watching a YouTube video the other day of somebody that I know that does YouTube for a living and truly does YouTube for a living. Like she gets paid from sponsorships. Her sponsorships and ads is what pays her bills, right? And she was saying like she was wondering if she didn't do it for a living, would she post on social media? Like would she share pictures on social media or would she just not? Because I know people in my life who don't share things on social media. Like we had friends over last weekend, a friend of mine from high school who's not on Instagram. And his wife was like, she was there and she was like, yeah, I have seen, because he would like ask me for pictures or something. And I pulled up a picture and he looked at it and then he showed his wife and she was like, yeah, I saw that because she follows me on Instagram. So she already saw that picture of Lila where he didn't because he wasn't on social media. So I know there are people that do it. There are people that don't spend time on social media. Like, I don't know. Yeah, taking time off social media does help. I agree. But then you just have that FOMO of like what's happening on social media while I'm not there, which is not good either. We should be out living our lives and not worrying about what's happening on the internet. It's hard. It's so hard, y'all. We're all doing our best. There's a social distance to social media. We feel a sense of an anonymity, immediacy, and we're less inclined to believe that way within real life. Relationships are required to maintain over time. 1,000%, I agree with you. The anonymity is a piece of it though that I will never get over. Like, it's one thing for somebody who has a real face with a real name calling me out for something that I said on the internet. It's another thing for somebody with no profile picture and it's username 12345. No. You do not get to be anonymous and like, I don't know who you are and you're calling me out. Like, that I will never, ever get over probably. But I agree. The way we react to social media relationships and content and whatnot versus how we are in person, it's very different. Very different. I was writing down today, I have FOMO in my own life. I'd rather live my life is what I mean. Yeah. It's hard because there's some beautiful aspects to it. Obviously, like us creating a community here and me being able to keep up with friends that live on the other side of the country, right? There are a lot of pros, but then there's also the cons. And sometimes it's like, do they outweigh with everything? I just had this conversation with somebody the other day about how we outweigh. It was more about risk reward rather than pros cons almost every day, right? And some of it we do subconsciously. Like I decide to cross the street and I'm outweighing the risk of getting hit by a car with the reward of crossing the street because I need to get to where I need to get to. And at the end of the day, like the pros always need to outweigh the cons. Otherwise, why the heck are we doing it? And that's how I think it comes down to circle back to the question you asked about the best and the worst things. To me, the pros will always, at least for now, outweigh the cons. The flexibility of being able to work for myself, spend time with my daughter, and enjoy the work that I'm doing will always offset the struggles that I have with this being my job. Always. And I'm okay with that. And the day that they don't is the day I probably should get off the internet and stop doing this. All right, y'all. It is almost time. Let's wrap this up. That was a fun topic to end on. What is the one thing that you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What is the one step you're going to take to keep making progress? I want you to share your one thing down in the comments. If you are here live, share in the chat. And if you are watching the replay, in the comments. My one thing is to enjoy our trip to New York City. We leave tomorrow. And there will be no live next week because we are coming back on Wednesday. There will be a video up in its place. So there will be a video Monday and Wednesday next week in place of the live chat. And then I'll be back the following week. Categorize your someday maybe list. I love it. I love that you have a key takeaway from this live. That's a great step. Anybody else want to share their action steps? I do love hearing about all your steps and all your different goals. And as always, if you have any questions or need anything, you can always come chat with me in the DMs. All right, y'all. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up before you head out, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching.